My next guest, I tell you, we get a lot of calls or letters and stuff about guests. We've gotten a lot of advanced promotion from our appearance of our next guest, and that's K Trevor Wilson. Hey, K Trev, come on in. Hi there.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem whatsoever. So, K Trev, where are you right now?
I'm back home in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
And you're from the show Letterkenny, which has a lot of fans here in the States. So are you in production?
Right now, we're on lockdown up here in Ontario. We should be going back to work on seasons 10 and 11 of Letterkenny sometime in May. I believe we're scheduled to go back to work.
Wow. So that's
waiting.
That's too bad. That is really too bad. Now, for those who don't know who you are, where did you get your start?
I started out as a kid actor, actually. I've been in the business since I was about 14, 15 years old. My first professional act was, I did a Canadian Film Center short, and then my first big show was probably Goosebumps. I did 2 episodes of the kids' horror series Goosebumps growing up. First one was Haunted Mask Part 2, which I was cut out of for, I'm going to say, timing reasons. I thought my work as bully number 3 was quite visionary at the time, but got left on the cutting room floor. And they brought me back a couple of years later and upgraded me to bully number 1 on another episode of the show. My Best Friend's Invisible, which you can still find on Netflix, I'm pretty sure. And then I've been doing stand-up as well since about 2000. And, got into audition for Letterkenny a few years back and joined the cast. And now here I am on Amber Live. It's,
things just get better and better. We've got a clip
to the top.
We've got a clip of you appearing on Jimmy Kimmel. So let's watch that.
This is going on. It's called Sex Cop Fire Penis. It is available on iTunes now. Please welcome K Trevor Wilson.
Thank you very much, folks. I'll tell you a bit about myself. I was born into an oddly religious family. I use the term oddly religious because I was born a Christian Scientist. Thank you. A lot of people confuse Christian Science with Scientology. They are actually 2 very different religions. Scientology, if you don't know, is a religion that was started by science fiction author L. Ron Hubbard, and they practice under the belief that millions of years ago, aliens were dropped into volcanoes here on Earth, and now their spirits roam the planet causing bad things. Christian Science is much, much stupider. Christian Science is actually a sect of Christianity started by a woman named Mary Baker Eddy, and they practice under the belief that they don't have to go to the doctor or use medicine. They believe they can cure all illnesses through the healing power of prayer. So, needless to say, most of my family is dead. Turns out doctors are wicked important. Please go see them. Those diplomas were very hard to get. Growing up, I had a nickname. My nickname was Big Trev, and it was the most unnecessary nickname I've ever had because I didn't have any other friends named Trev. I was the only one. You didn't have to put a size disclaimer in front of my name. You could just say Trev. I knew who you meant. But I get it. I'm a weird-looking guy. I look like what would happen if Game of Thrones and Duck Dynasty had a baby.
So, do you like watching yourself?
It's always weird. It's always weird, especially because it's like a few years ago, and I was actually listening to myself. That was before my throat surgery. So, so my voice was a little bit deeper back in that track.
So you trusted doctors to have throat surgery?
A few years ago, I found out I had a swelling on my vocal cords. They'd on one side it had probably doubled in size, and it's actually a very common thing to happen to smokers. I was a cigarette smoker for many years. Actually, this March will be 1 year completely without a cigarette. And so I went in for, they wanted to biopsy it to make sure it wasn't cancerous. And luckily it wasn't. But she's like, while I'm in there doing the biopsy, I might as well take a laser and reduce it back down to its original size. So I let them do that. I actually, I scheduled it in a summer when I had nothing going on. And then that ended up being the summer that I recorded my Comedians of the World special for Netflix. So if you ever watch my Comedians of the World on Netflix, I have a bucket of water next to me that I was constantly drinking, because that was about 2 and 3 weeks after my throat surgery. And I had to keep drinking to stay hydrated. Otherwise, I'd lose my voice because I was still in recovery. I was actually pumped full of steroids for my throat back then. So I was on steroids for that special.
So who were your early influences in the comedy world?
Well, growing up in Canada, I loved John Candy, all of his movies, and SCTV, growing up on that. I think I was watching Uncle Buck when I first realized, like, sort of put together, I was about 7 years old, and I put together that was a job. Like, John Candy made movies like My Dad Goes to the Office, and I was like, okay, well, that has to be the very best job, so I want to do that. And then comics like Eddie Murphy and George Carlin really started my love affair. Robin Williams, Brian Regan, guys like that, watching them and listening to them on the radio made me really fall in love with stand-up and that aspect of comedy and performance. I think Carlin really started my love affair with words and playing with the turn of phrase and how you can get a lot of comedy out of that. There's oddly enough a lot of Carlin in Squirrely Dan, because half the fun of Squirrely Dan is the malapropisms and the turn of phrase and too many plurals, and it's just a lot of having fun with language. And we'll sit down before a shoot sometimes and be like, what word is funnier to mess up? Should I add a plural here, or should I drop an R here? Like, how do we mess this one up for the best joke?
So that's great that you have some liberties with the script, that the writers allow you to do that.
We have great writers, and I would say 90% of what makes it onto camera is what's on the page. And in the first few years, it's not so much that they'd let me play around with the script, but they'd let me choose where and when the Squirrely Danisms would come in, like the extra S's, or saying aminal instead of animal, saying stuff like that. Now the writers are a lot more used to writing for that character and writing for the verbal style, so that now in the more recent seasons, more than the previous seasons, they'll put the S's in there and put the malapropisms in there. But in some of the earlier seasons, it was a little bit of collaboration with Jared and Jacob and myself. It's like, is it funnier if I screw up this word, or funnier if we screw up this word?
That's great. Comedy by committee. That works. So one of our viewers sent in a question asking, how many takes does it take for you to get a scene going but that you don't crack up and they have to yell, cut?
We're actually a pretty efficient crew. We do about 12, 13 pages of dialogue a day, which in film and TV standards is like one heck of a workload.
Yeah.
So we actually crank through them pretty quick. Like we do laugh a lot, we do giggle a lot, but they're not complicated shots to reset, and we sort of get our laughs out once, and we're usually able to pull it back together. And there are a few times where we have full on just too much of the sillies and breakdown in hysterics, but we crank them out pretty quick. We're usually, and Jacob, who directs it, doesn't like to do too many takes. He just wants to, as soon as he's got the shot he wants, we're moving on. We're not wasting film here.
Sounds like my type of guy. So you mentioned SCTV earlier. That was probably one of the first Canadian shows that made an impact here in the States. And there haven't been that many reasons till the Kids in the Hall, that was big here. And then recently your show and Schitt's Creek, Canadian. Why do you think that is, that there hasn't been more of a crossover?
Well, for starters, Canadian, we get a lot of American television up there. So there is kind of a struggle to get good Canadian projects made because we have so much entertainment influx coming in from the United States and also from Britain in Canada. And they sort of, a lot of Canadian shows, once they get it to a syndication point, they stop producing new episodes. And a lot of the shows are very Canadian. They get the more sort of Canadian centric they are, the more government grant money they can apply for. So a lot of the shows don't translate outside of Canada as well because there's an emphasis on keeping them super Canadian. And I think in just these recent years with streaming and the need for more content that companies like Netflix and Hulu have been looking outside of United States producers for content, and it's just been a perfect time. There's been a lot of shows that have sort of crossed over in the past few years from Canada. Letterkenny, Schitt's Creek, also Baroness von Sketch on Netflix, Kim's Convenience. There's a couple great Canadian shows, and a lot of shows people don't realize that are produced up here, like a lot of the CW superhero shows, Flash, Arrow, Supergirl, all filmed in Vancouver. Vikings is a Canadian co-production, a lot of it done up here. Actually, a lot of sci-fi dramas come out of Canada, and about 90% of the Hallmark movies are shot here too.
So what have you been doing during the lockdown to keep yourself occupied?
Hanging out with my fiance, and we got 2 rabbits, so keeping them from eating my apartment has been keeping me pretty busy for the past few months. I started baking, got into that pretty good. My mom bought me a book called The Cookie Bible, so I've been baking my way through that. And I've been going through my T-shirt collection, posting a picture on my Instagram every day of me in one of my wrestling shirts.
So don't you have a T-shirt line that you've come out with?
I do, in fact. Thank you for mentioning it. I put out my own T-shirt store on belowthecollar.com, which is actually the same company that does pro wrestling tees. And I have actually my buddy Ron Funches recommended it to me, and me to them, and set up my own T-shirt store. So K Trevor Wilson, belowthecollar.com. We have 4 designs, but we're looking to get some more going. And and also if you like my albums, you can buy them on my website, ktrevorwilson.com.
You got to push that in there. You got to. All right. So being in Vermont, Burlington, we're not far from Montreal, and you've been in the Just for Laughs comedy showcase up in Montreal several times.
Yeah, Just for Laughs in Montreal has been a great place for me in comedy. It was the first city I headlined was Montreal at the Comedy Nest in the old Forum. And this year with the pandemic is actually the first year I haven't been at Just for Laughs since 2012. I've been there every year since then. I've done a special most of the times, and I did both my comedy specials were recorded in Montreal. The Comedians of the World special, Talking Shit, and then up in Canada I have a special on Crave called Bigger in Person, which was also recorded there. And I've been doing the galas. It's I miss going back there. It's a good comedy town and a good food town. Haven't had smoked meat in Montreal in too long.
Well, the next time you're in Montreal, come on down to Burlington. We've got a wonderful comedy club here, the Vermont Comedy Club, and it's a beautiful little room, and they'd love to have you there. Nathaniel and Natalie are great people, and they'd love to have you, and you'd enjoy Burlington. I know you'd have a lot of fans come and see you.
Oh, I'd be delighted. I haven't been to Vermont since, since Mom planned a family vacation around going to outlet malls in New Hampshire. That was a million years ago. We stopped off at Vermont and stayed at a Holiday Inn, and I remember I used the jacuzzi tub, and all the skin bits of everyone who's ever been in that jacuzzi tub before me came shooting out of the jets. So Nothing against Vermont. That's more about the Holiday Inn.
Well, Trevor, K. Trev, thank you so much for being a part of Amber Live. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I know our audience has too.
Thanks
So
for
now,
having me.
oh, no problem.